I like to start with a health moment. Took a lot of energy to get here. So we're going to do two pieces. One, I want you to sit up in your chair and get yourself comfortable and rearrange your body to a healthy posture. And we're just actually going to just do a minute of breathing. So if you want to close your eyes, or you want to, if you're comfortable just letting your eyes gaze, just come inside your body and welcoming yourself, remembering, here I am. And any sensations come up, you just say hello and breathe and filling our bodies with relaxation, wholeness. Allowing yourself to just become fully present here now. You can gently bring your attention back into the room so that you're allowing your eyes to open and reconnect with one another. And then, just because I know what these meetings are about, let's take another minute to make sure that you know the person sitting next to you. Because you might be sitting next to your friend, you might have no idea who you're sitting next to. So I'm going to give you 1 minute just to say hello to the person next to you or behind you, or just connect for a sec. Right? Right? Make sure. You can join their group. We're going to get going again. Thank you. Thank you. It's always hard to get the energy refocused, but it's really important. So, because we are all on the same team here on the same page. So I did something slightly different than I said I was going to do. Let's see how these slides, and of course you're going to see me have to bend a little bit to get to my slides all night, but that's okay. I turned my agenda around because what I find is that when I talk to coaches, I don't need to explain what coaching is and the basics of coaching. And every time I talk to these coaches, they want to know about this, what is this health and wellness coaching field? Because it really is an emerging field. It's also a very download type of talk. It's like me talking and you listening. So if you do it at the end when you're all tired and ready to go home, you're going to be like, whatever. So I figured I'd just do it first, which is about 20 minutes, and then we go into a process and dyads and all that fun stuff, which is what coaches like to do, and it's also kind of why I'm here, because I like to do it too. So I turned it around. Okay, so what is health and wellness coaching? Why is health and wellness coaching a growing niche? Is a big deal, and it's important that the coaching profession understand what it is, because it's moving really fast. Quick definition of health and wellness, and then we move into narrative healing, and that's a method that I wrote a book about, that is something that you're doing in some way anyway as coaching, so I'm giving you a language of it, because it really is, the work that we did was not health coaches. We were all professional coaches. I was one of the few healthcare providers, and so the inquiry that we're 10 coaches who spent 3 or 4 years doing this inquiry about how healing emerges in any coaching setting. And we call that narrative healing. So that's what that term narrative healing is. And so it has this dual mode of coaches can relate to what they're doing and think of it now as healing. And then I go and talk in medical communities about how coaching affords narrative healing in the way that I work with clients. So really briefly, I describe myself as doing integrative medicine, which means predominantly I've been working with used to be patients, now it's clients, who are not responding to conventional care. Why would someone come and see me? You're not responding. You've been to the doctors, and now someone says, go see Joel. What I do with these people is homeopathy, nutritional medicine, and health coaching. That's the language that I use. And so it's really shifting the process of working with illness from a disease model to a healing model. And we're going to talk about that in the second half, basically. And what it does is it engages people in their own healing process as opposed to having them be passive to tests and medicines. for many years, I mean, I was doing alternative medicine, but we're still delivering it the exact same way that the physicians were delivering it. And I just got back from the National Association of Nutrition Professionals, and what I discovered is that all these organic chef nutrition professionals are delivering it in exactly the same way that conventional physicians are delivering it too. They're just delivering organic food and vitamins, but it's still, and I taught, and it's like, oh, I talk too much. Oh, I don't listen very much. Oh, I'm not connecting to my client very much. What happens when you do that? Everything starts to change. And they all said, I have a really hard time motivating people to make change, even though I'm having them eat differently and do things like that. And I was like, well, you might, learn some coaching skills, essentially. And the skills are exactly the same. I'm an ICF certified coach. It's the core competencies, and they're very well defined, and I find them incredibly well articulated, and it's really great going in medical communities and talking about the ICF core competencies, and I don't need to talk about it with you. So that's my kind of quick piece. And so then my technique I call narrative health coaching. You got to give something a name. That's the name we gave it. I'll do a very brief business of that, and then I do a quick business on my programs. Okay? So moving forward, whoops, I skipped that slide. Let's go back. Why is health and wellness coaching a growing niche? Well, so a bunch of really, really smart coaching folks got along. Boy, this is a really busy slide. You might know some of these people. Margaret Moore of Well Coaches, Meg Jordan of CIIS, Michael Orlowski of Real Balance Coaching. I mean, these are the health coaches. They got together and said, we really need to understand what this field is about and make it a legitimate field. So they surveyed, and this is what they figured out. They figured out in the United States, 150,000 people identify themselves as being a health coach in some form or another. Okay, and out of that, 16,000 are trained by a program that's actually now identified as a certifiable health and wellness coaching, because they've actually now have a certified programs. Okay, so that's a good data right there. 150, 16,000. There are 5,000 college degrees or academic certificates, so that roughly 20,000 of the 150,000 are formally trained in coaching that you and I do, and the other 100 and some odd thousand are just doing whatever they're doing. Okay, so if you go to a nutrition school, you're a coach. If you go to this school, you're a coach. There's a lot of people saying they're coaches, so these, what I think are very smart people, say we need to have an actual certified health and wellness coach. Because I'm going to get to what that actually is. I hope that slide's not a little too small, but there's 20,000 who are certified, 20,000 who are self-taught, and 100,000 who are mislabeled. I like that sort of term. So in September, they will give the first exam of the International Consortium of Health and Wellness Coaching, and roughly 1,000 will take it. They're going to offer the test twice a year, and I would say by 2020, there'll be 5,000 or 6,000 certified health and wellness coaches. And so that means if you are like Kaiser will only start to hire certified coaches like within a year or two. And that's actually an entry-level job at this stage, is to work for Kaiser or for Sutter, because they're hiring people. You have a question? Yeah.
What is mislabeled?
So mislabeled essentially means, the biggest one is I went to a nutrition school and I became a coach. So the question was, what's mislabeled? Okay, and the most common mislabel is that I went to a nutrition program, and now now I'm doing health and wellness coaching focusing on nutrition. Okay, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but there's one very large school that does a lot of that in the United States, and they have very successful marketing. It could also mean exercise physiology is the other place that it happens, but it really is that you can get a certificate and be a certified coach in a couple of hours, and who knows what you do, really. Not in this club, okay. Okay, more data on, now comes the reason why health and wellness coaches are so important. Okay, so we're all following the healthcare issues with the House changing. One of the solutions, the escalating cost of lifestyle-related disease is the escalating cost is estimated to comprise 70% of our healthcare dollars. Right. I actually heard another statistic, which is it's 16 to 1 money spent on non-physicians to physicians. There's a statistic for you. For every dollar spent on a doctor, we spend 16 on administration. Isn't that and like in the European countries is like 6 or 5 or 4, just to give you a sense. We spend a lot of money on the whole non-clinical part of it. No one can afford it. It's not a good business. It's not the government, not the society. I mean, honestly, a single-payer system we know works really, really well, but I'm not going to get off the subject. We're also gaining a lot of weight, okay? Adult diabetes is growing rapidly. They say about 40% of Americans are either obese or close to obese at this stage of the game. I would say 40% of my clients come in and see me for some sort of GI disturbance. That's the most common reason why someone will come in. The modern epidemic that 1 or 2 Americans have, 90% don't even know it yet. So there's a whole way in which it's not something that we're very aware of. This is Mark Hyman. He's a pretty well-known guy for those. This is a really interesting thing. Medicine likes to think of diseases by names: heart disease, cancer, stroke, respiratory disease, accidents. What's happening might actually be poor diet, physical inactivity, unmanaged stress, cigarette smoking, drinking too much, and reckless lifestyle. So we started to use the term lifestyle medicine. It's a useful term. Harvard runs a program in lifestyle medicine. They had one of those coaches who is involved with the certification is very involved. She's a physician coach. You're starting to see physician coaches emerging, trying to change this language from disease to actual lifestyle issues, pieces like that. There's been a change over the last 100 years. This is probably not news to you either. I mean, I know this might be hard to read, but it used to be that we died of, what you're seeing here is the pies moving 37% to 77%, right? And so non-communicable conditions is 70% of all the disease. That means disease is coming from the way you live versus being exposed to something. So 100 years ago, you were more likely to die of an infectious illness, and now you're more likely to actually get something that has much more to do with the way you've lived your life, okay? Which is actually, an aside is it makes for a good drug industry because we can keep inventing things for people like that. Right? And then, of course, you can see what health coaches like to say. Well, lifestyle improvements, regular exercise, healthy eating, weight management, moderate drinking, don't smoke, learn mindfulness practice. And there's a lot of research. I didn't put a lot of research up here because it's going to kind of bore you, but there's, the cross-sectional studies say there's between 700 and 800 positive, double-blind, peer-reviewed research in the last 10 years. Okay, so there's a lot of research coming out on, disease-specific. If you give someone a coaching program, they get positive outcomes. Okay, I'm realizing right now that I didn't put that slide up. It's one of the slides I left off. Okay, let me get this whole slide up. Okay. Knowledge alone made a difference. 1 in 20 adults engage in all of the 6 top health behaviors. I won't put you all on the spot. Regular exercise, healthy fat intake, eating vegetables, maintaining your weight, not drinking too much and smoking. Only 1 in 20. That's not very many. So you can see why there's a niche here. A niche, right? There's a need for this. And since medicine, physicians, my wife's a family physician, so I don't have anything bad to say about physicians, okay? But the way the cost, anyone been in a hospital or had a medical condition, the numbers are astronomical what we spend. And the health coach is actually an affordable person in the middle. So you're starting to see more and more medical situations, and I'll show you that particular data of who's starting to use it, right? Almost done with this whole section. People lack the skills and support for lifestyle change. Missing are the skills for autonomous, sustainable lifestyle change. Psychological hardiness, behavioral skills, capacity for resilience, process for self-efficacy, tools for new habit formation. So you can see, a physician doesn't have much time to do this work, do they? If you're going to see 4 or 5 people an hour, how are you going to do this? Right? So I know at least a half a dozen physicians in the Bay Area who have health coaches in the office, in the session, with the client, the patient on the first visit, and then at the end of the first visit they say, okay, you're going to go see this health coach for the second and third visit, and they're going to talk about diet and lifestyle. So that when I say you need to exercise more, you have somebody who follows up and works with you on what does that look like. I love to say this because telling someone to exercise 3 times a week is not the same as saying, well, does that mean you're going to wake up before and do it before you feed your kids? Are you going to do a gym at lunch? Are you going to decide you're going to run a marathon? Are you going to be a dragon boat runner, rower? Like what? It's a different type. There's a lot of ways of exercising. A coach can do that with someone, and the physician can't do that work, right? There's just no time for it. So it makes total sense. I'm seeing lots of nodding because it's preaching to the choir on this one, yeah? Okay, so this is what this is the way it looks like when you go to the doc. And we know pretty statistically that doesn't get people to do much, right?
Yeah, there's no place on there for listen.
Right, right. And so, of course, right, there's only a few, okay, current health education has been in place for 35 years, so physicians don't have this training at all. Obesity and diabetes, chronic disease requires lifestyle change. Right. I mean, unfortunately, I'm just going to say this is just something I say all the time, that at this stage, the way food is in America, but a lot of the first world, is a little bit like the way the ocean has a current. It actually takes a lot of work to eat well. And if you're not paying attention, it's really easy to not eat well. Right? So it's not like it's just the world, it's set up for you to have it work for you. It's actually set up for you to likely to, get out of balance really quickly, right? So it takes a little bit of structural work to get people to move along. All right, let's see where. Whoops, that's the long slide change. Okay, so this is back to, now we're back to moving. So that was the reason for all this. This is the health coaching slide. So about 2010, these coaches got together and said, this is like too chaotic. Coaching doesn't really mean anything. There's diplomas happening everywhere, and we needed standards. Okay, and they felt like the ICF was not, they wanted to work beyond the standard to create more specifics. So they ended up coming up with this is the name of the organization, the International Consortium of Health and Wellness Coaches. Okay, it was a collaborative process. The challenge that they had, or they have, is there's commercial coaching programs which run, 60 to 100 hours, and then there's academic coaching programs that are a year to 2 years long, and they can't be the same, right? So how do we justify and rectify those? And that's true in professional coaching too. I mean, you can go to Columbia and get a coaching degree, or you can go to, there's a lot of different coaching programs. So they really did a wonderful job, okay? And they had to build a consensus, they had to create an exam, they had to support research, they had to make relationships, they had to announce this whole thing, and apparently they've been very successful. The key thing that first thing they came up with is their own definition of coaching. So this is the official definition of coaching. Health and wellness coaches partner with clients seeking self-directed, lasting changes aligned with their values, which promote health and wellness and thereby enhance well-being. I usually show the ICF after this. I didn't for you guys. I think you all know the ICF. Their key, what you're seeing is what's not here. They really wanted to make sure they didn't use the word medicine, pathology, disease, because that gets the physicians all a little bit, the fur goes up, right? When you say things, are you practicing medicine? Okay, so that's why the word wellness shows up. It's not my favorite word, to tell you the truth. I describe myself as a health coach and not a wellness coach. And I think what I'm trying to work with people is so they heal. That's different than be well. Okay, so I work with illness, but there is a difference technically between the two. Okay, and so that's the international consortium, right? This is their definition. Okay, it's not that far off. They are doing this board certification, and what they did, and this is the coup here, and non-medical folks might not appreciate this, but they actually got the National Board of Medical Examiners to run and partner with them. So that means the agency in charge of licensing physicians is the agency in charge of licensing health and wellness coaches. That's pretty savvy of a thing to pull off. Right? That's what they did. So, in September, you're going to go to the same place that the doctor goes to sit for this exam. Okay? That's what this NBN, National Board of Medical Examiners. So, I don't know what the exam's like. I'm going to sit and take it just for fun. Then they say you have to do 50 sessions, unlike, say, an ACC, which is 100 or 125 sessions. So 100 sessions, yeah. And they define a session as 20 minutes. So health coaching is fairly typically delivered in small chunks regularly, just to give you a little bit of a scale thing. I mean, I do full hour sessions is the way I work with people. Okay, and then when you certify, I didn't put it up here, what you will get is you will be a national board certified health and wellness coach. So NBCHWC with a dash in there. NBC-. Sorry, I didn't get that on the slide. So they're National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. And my prediction is within 2 or 3 years, that's what will be the standard for most hospital hires. And most hospitals are hiring at this stage of the game. If you were to do a Google word search, you will see a job listing every day. 2 or 3 will come up on your Google Word thing saying there's jobs everywhere. Okay, an entry-level health and wellness coaching job is going to be about $35 an hour. Okay, just to give you a skill. That doesn't mean that there aren't $50 and $70 an hour jobs, but I'm saying that's what it's like. And a lot of that is phone coaching for doing things like stop smoking programs. That's what Kaiser does a lot of hiring for. So as a Kaiser person, you'll get 5 or 10 sessions with a coach if you have certain diagnostic categories. You'll just get one, and someone will call you up once a week and check in and see how you're doing. Right, and there's a lot of disease categories that makes a huge difference, particularly diabetes. So you get people's compliance go way up if somebody's paying attention to them. Okay, that makes sense. But it's not very sophisticated. But it's just important, as because you guys we're doing very more sophisticated type of coaching. There's a whole range going on here. And the guy just said, who had the doctor with the 2 people in his clinic, that's not what he's talking about. He's not paying $35 an hour, and it's not 20 minutes. It's actually full session programmatic coaching where you're working with a client over a sequence of time, right? So you have a whole range that's going on out there. I'll pause. I know I talk kind of fast. Is that just everyone following and questions just about from this moment, or just the mundane questions about this kind of stuff? No, nothing is too. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, yeah, pass that on. Go to work.
Thank you. I'm wondering if this will also flow into health clubs,
Yes.
and because I know that that's happening a little bit in my world where, well, what's the difference? You're a fitness trainer.
This is great. You asked
Coaching.
the next question. Here's where they are. It's the perfect lead. So you mentioned, so in other words, where are these coaches is what you're saying. Will it flow in? So it starts with hospitals and healthcare because honestly that's 20% of the GDP, right? But it trickles down. Employee benefits, that's wellness coach programs. Right? Because a lot of companies, Google, all the .coms are saying I get much more bang for my buck if I give wellness programs versus waiting until you get sick. So you're seeing a lot of coaches here. Fitness facilities. So right now you have trainers. You're going to start to see more health and wellness coaches at Anytime Fitness. Community wellness centers. So I know there's a huge movement. I was meeting with John F. Kennedy University, and they have a program now where the students are getting to filter through community centers to do coaching at a low cost as a way of training people. On-site employee wellness programs, human resource departments. Of course, there's the independent coaches who are coaching, and then health and wellness coach education and training programs. This is just a kind of a big, they're everywhere, which I think is what your question was. Is there a follow-up to that? Yeah, yeah.
It's very interesting. I was working in an organization
Uh-huh.
5 months ago, they said, "Well, you just finished your program in coaching." I said, "Yes. How can I help?" And they said, "Well, we're going to start employee individual coaching sessions once a
Nice.
month." So I'm very grateful. I mean, I have a small start, but I never dreamed in a million years that my other job would flow over to this. So they took a small segment, like 20% of what I normally do of that time,
Yep.
and doing coaching. So you just never know, and that's through HR.
Right, exactly, through HR. So it's sort of emerging everywhere. Thank you for sharing, and that is really, so, this next slide is going to show you, though, of course, this doesn't surprise anyone, the big 75%, that's most of this, is I'm being a private coach, trying to make a living, and all those other ones are in the other 25%. Benefits, healthcare, that's what 10%, 5% describe them as, that's wellness care, so that's working in corporate wellness. So we're saying 25% are working in agencies and 75% are still are having to take classes in marketing and having a website, a nice car, card, and actually having to sell yourselves. And, it takes a while. Don't give up your job, your day job, until you get this to happen. It's a natural emerging thing. Remember, we're describing the 20,000 and we're leaving off the 100,000 that we don't kind of really know what they're doing in a certain way. Right? I think I might have gotten through all that talking so we can do the fun stuff. So yeah, that's where we are. So we did it, now everybody got to. So questions about that is, I hope the idea was just to sort of have everyone, like, we're professional coaches in the room. This is a whole new niche and you're going to see more coming here. Oh, I guess I will say that most of the important coaching schools are both ICF certified and International Consortium certified. Right? That's a pretty standard. Yeah.
Joel, what kind of background do you see typically with wellness, people who want to take the wellness coaching certification?
Right. So that's a great question. So what kind of background so you see two big backgrounds. So a lot of health professionals who are dissatisfied with their work. So, I mean, so I run a school and I have physicians, and I don't have a lot of nurses because there's a whole very strong nurse coach world. Therapists, alternative practitioners. I'm talking right now about designing a program for physician's assistants and acupuncturists, interestingly. So there's definitely, because of the forces in medicine, coaching is very appealing. That's what I did. Right? There's another sector that, there's two different pieces that come up. One is the sort of the yoga industry generates young people, mostly women, who want to turn their lifestyle into a professional. So this is where, so I taught at an academic program. It's called Maryland University of Integrative Health. And so a lot of people are getting full baccalaureate programs, master's degrees. So you get either a 1-year certification or a 2 years master's degree to enter the marketplace. And then the other group is usually leaving corporate, which is true for regular coaches. Like it's like my kids are grown up and I want to do something, and so I'm going to become a health coach, right? And it's just like I found my career chain because of autonomy, because people want to, it's mostly women, to be honest, the profession. It's not 100%, but it's dominated. So the backgrounds vary, but the biggest chunk is actually health professionals who are actually wanting to change their career or add it as a skill, which is kind of what my niche has been. Yeah. Other questions like that, before we start to have more fun, because you've listened, you've got it. We've got to give these guys something to do. They're standing around. Okay. So we move on, okay? So that was the health and wellness coaches. Now we move to narrative healing, which is now getting into the fun stuff that's very applicable to you. Okay, so rooted in narrative healing is the word narrative, so story. I'm going to use the word narrative and story interchangeably. What's your story? One of the reasons why that it's a key piece is because health coaching can get very behavioral. Okay, what I mean by that is, are you eating right? Are you exercising? You do this stuff. And to me, that's not very holistic. That's not the person. The person is the story that goes with it. right? So as I like to say, every behavior has a story. And if we can understand what we're doing and why we're doing it and work from a coaching perspective there, then it allows us to change the behavior. And that's where I think the fundamentals of coaching really comes in. And there is this, because health coaching comes out of medicine, it's easy to collapse into just, are you exercising more? And that's not what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I think this is good. So those who grow up old without learning the story that is trying to live through them don't become old enough or ancient enough to serve the dream of life. So in my fundamental emphasis is whatever's happening to you in terms of your symptoms, your illness, your trauma, your grief, to give you a big, broad swaths of what I mean by healing profession, right, it's okay, we're going to have these experience, but if we stop and sort of start to open up to what our experience is, we might discover the story that's in it. Is there something that I can take home from my own experience that I'm not paying attention to because I'm kind of orienting toward getting rid of it, right? And so I kind of finally learned that we sort of adopted the idea that we needed to get rid of it from the way medicine has sort of been delivered. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm not romanticizing that 500 years ago everybody was in love with their symptoms and their illness, okay? Because wouldn't be authentic, it'd be true. But I am saying that there was a way in which when we didn't have so much causal microbiology medicine, we could just have my shoulder really hurts, and that's what the problem was, not I have, bursitis, which doesn't really mean anything. Does anyone know what bursitis is? Well, it means, right, it's an inflammation of my shoulder, right? It's a fancy word. We seem to be very content to go and get a diagnosis, and now something's happened, and all it is we got a different name for experience. So then when my interest is, well, what's going on? So we're going to do this now, right? And I guess I should have warned you. I hope that people have it. I like to do a little bit of a writing assignment. So I don't know if everybody brought something to write with, right? And because it wasn't usually in a classroom. So we'll see. How many people have something that they could write on? And let's do it the other way. How many people don't have anything they can write on? So we have a lot of writers. Maybe we can get something for you to write on, okay?
What about writing in your notes?
Yeah, you could write it on your phone. It doesn't have to be a big writing, right? So I'm just going to give you this one slide. You don't have to start to write yet. We'll take another second. So this other thing is says illness and healing narratives are not only relevant with regard to personal well-being, but there's also a social, national, and global. So when I start to say to you what comes up, some people's healing narrative may have a lot to do with the elections that just happened. Okay? It doesn't have to be your physical health. That's right. There's no requirement that you start writing about, my headache. You also can, there's social structures that can be a challenge. There's where I live. There's local violence, and as I said, we began to start to describe, symptoms, loss, grief, and trauma as a big language to cover the whole field, which crosses over from the more medical perspective of symptoms. Okay. So if you have something to write with, have it ready. We're going to do a moment of reflection, and then I'm going to ask you to write. So first you got to get your piece out, and then I'm going to bring up the next slide, right? So this is it. We're going to give you about 5 minutes to see whatever happens, okay? But this is the basic assignment. Bring to mind a time or an event in your life in which you experienced healing. So I'm just going to stop there and just give you a second to when did I experience healing? And take a moment to reflect on the sequence of events, or the event. Maybe the people that were there, the setting. the experience that you were having on the inside. Okay, and then the assignment is free write. Write whatever you want to write now about that little memory and that event. Don't worry about how good it is. There's no right and wrong, and you're not going to have to read it out loud to anybody, but you are going to share. Okay, you're on your own for 5 minutes of just write whatever comes up about that. Contextualize this. So in narrative health coaching, which is the method that I'm teaching in my school, you have these 4 principles. Stories matter. That's what you're doing. Stories matter. Relationships engage, which is what you're about to do. Right? Learning transforms. Growth heals. So essentially what the underlying idea is that the learning that we know how to do in coaching, not health coaching, in coaching that you all do, is a healing model fundamentally if you put it in a healthcare context. Right? You have the opportunity to actually grow through your stuff, and that stuff can be your health issues just as easily as can be your executive or your leadership or your life. It can be put in the same context, and in many ways you all have those skills to some extent. So that's the 4 principles. So the next thing is we're going to do diads, and since we have a really short amount of time, it'd be great to get into partners, not into triads, because you don't have a lot of time to share what you wrote with your partner. You don't have to read it, you can just share the basics of it. The other part of the assignment is that the other person really is not supposed to comment. The other person is really just supposed to say thank you and hear it. Okay, that's the skill that we're trying to build here, right? Respond to your partner. Here, this is, right? Thank you with empathy and compassion and no fixing, which I don't think is a hard one for this audience, okay? Because that's what we do, I think. Okay, so can we just do that? We don't have a huge amount of time, I've been told by my friends here. So partners, please, it can be with someone you know, just, let's please face each other. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to find someone to work with. Sharing your story or listening to someone else's story, that's the reflection. And I'm asking if anyone would like to share with us. You need the mic, though, so people at home can listen. What was the impact of you sharing, telling your story? Thank you.
Thank you. The impact of sharing is learning not only what healing is to us, but how what healing is to the other person too. So that was insightful.
Of the sort of comparing notes. You're not alone with the story. Yeah, interesting.
Healing is healing.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Thank you. Other folks want to share? Yep. Kurt, you got a mic. There you go. Thanks.
I think how I felt was there was an authenticity in being able to share and really validate, where I was at and where I am today, and being heard. So.
Nice. Thank you.
Well, first, we had a similar experience that we were sharing, so that was interesting to hear my partner's experience and his outlook on it, as opposed to my experience, and yet we had similar. But something came out of it in the sharing that didn't happen in the writing, and for me was in what I learned in my healing, I realized gave me a skill to help someone else who really needed an advocate that I wouldn't have had that skill. And that was an aha moment. That was nice.
Nice. Well, thank you.
For me, in telling my story, it gave me an opportunity after the writing of it, which was definitely healing in and of itself to articulate that because I hadn't thought of what I had experienced as a healing. But then sharing it with somebody else enabled me to own it another level deeper.
Nice, thanks. Just do one more and then we keep moving on. Anybody else want to share? There.
I think I learned that sometimes our greatest struggles can be a way of telling us what we are here to express. And listening to his story, it was so beautiful that in a way if we can help people learn that their struggle is teaching them something, that when they learn it, they can truly help others because they have lived through that. I think that was
Nice.
great.
Lovely, thank you. So you said that you get a taste of how, what I'm doing when training health coaches and why it's lovely to be working with health professionals, right? To have health professionals be able to move out. So I know I talk about my wife a lot. I mean, I love my wife and she's great. But she's a family physician who's done a basic health coaching program, and it's interesting how it doesn't give her any more time. It doesn't really change what she does, but it actually allows her presence to be so much more, like she cherishes those little tiny moments where something like this can happen in a 15-minute interview, and it's just really powerful because she recognizes it now, where she didn't recognize it, and studying formal coaching really gave her that skill. Presence, awareness, I mean, the drill on the language for that stuff. So it really is a wonderful piece. So the language we give it is narrative healing, because that's what it is, narrative healing, and it gets out of the idea of narrative medicine. Okay, so there is a whole field of narrative medicine, and narrative medicine ends up being really focused on people telling their illness story. Okay, and you'll notice I asked for your healing story. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit of context around that. I got to move forward. So there's a formal term, which is a great gobbledygook term called salutogenesis, which literally means the creation of health or fostering of healing. Saluto, meaning health, genesis, origins, emphasizes healing and health-promoting behaviors which have a significantly different orientation than the removal of the causes of illness. So this is a work of a gentleman named Aaron Antonovsky. He's passed away now. He is an American, but he ended up moving to Israel. He's a sociologist. So his question was, is healing just the reverse of getting sick? Okay, so we have this idea, pathogenesis is diagnosing and treating what went wrong, and so healing is just, well, it's the opposite. And so that was his question. The answer to him was, no, it's not. It's a totally fundamentally different process, but you have to inquire. You have to look at it, okay, in some way, and you have to ask people to find out what it means. So I'm going to give you the really short and dirty version of like a lifetime's worth of study. He ended up coining this term, a sense of coherence. Okay, it's a global orientation that expresses the extent to which one has a pervasive, enduring, though dynamic feeling of confidence that, one, the stimuli deriving from one's internal external environments in the course of living are structured, predictable, and explicable. So one of the big challenges of Hillary losing is it wasn't predictable, and it made a lot of people suffer. However, in a democratic society, it is predictable in the sense that I don't understand the impeach thing because it's like we elected them. Right? I don't have to like it, but it is the way our system works. It goes back and forth. So at another level, it was the way society works. It was structured and predictable. I'm not saying I'm thrilled. I'm just saying it did fit that story. So it's structured. So the one is the internal and external. That's my experience in the world around me, is structured, predictable, and explicable. Number two is resources are available. Okay, well, that's a really interesting idea. Are the resources available to meet the demands posed by the stimuli? And what are those resources? So I do a lot of coaching about what I call healing resources, helping people develop healing resources. If I know that there's this structure that's not working in my life, what are the resources I need to be able to meet those demands regularly? I'm sure that's applicable to other style of coaching. It's just a language, though, you see I'm giving it. And the third one is the demands are challenges worthy of investment. Like, why bother? Which is kind of what you guys were suggesting there. Like, the actual experience I'm having has a value if I invest meaning into it versus something I want to get rid of. So this is salutogenesis, and if you want to hear the shortened version of this one, it's 3 bullets. It's comprehensibility. I understand what's happening to me. I can make sense of my experience. It's manageability. I can work with it. And it's meaningful, right? This is meaningful to me. I can find meaning in and can commit myself to the challenges and the demands. So if I get cancer or I get a loss in my life, is it meaningful to me to actually gain new resources, which is back to the comment you made. There's something gold here I can get if I want to look at it that way, besides just, can you get rid of this for me, please? Right, you know, take a pill, or there's skills. So my term is healing resources and helping develop people. I want to help people develop healing resources, and that requires investing your energy and time, which is once again why coaching is so useful, because you can build those skills. I'm going to pause because it kind of goes. So questions about that or this idea? And I can say what I do in a class, because I teach in a class, is I ask people to take those narratives and write them again with this in mind. Now tell that story again thinking about this stuff, right? Because you can, I bet. You just think about it for a sec, what you wrote. It's like, what did I understand? What was the resources? What was the management? What was meaningful about it? I can write a whole nother narrative with the same exact event. Right, and that's the narrative work. And I do it with clients too. Yeah.
This is great. Now, this was thinking about just the manageability. Sorry, manageability part. Just think about from the fitness trainer side, which has been most of my life too. The manageability part, so I can work with this, and I think that part is missing a lot with folks.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they meet with you, help fix me.
Right.
Give me the formula, what I need to do, how many reps I need to do. But it's nothing internal happening. It's not, the shift hasn't happened. And I can see where coaching is very, very profound. And some instances, as you know, the difference between life and death with people.
Yeah, it's interesting because every time, thank you for pointing out, I come back to these and I keep seeing new meaning in each one. So I go on and on about management. That's the number one thing that we overlook. It's like a really simple course example is, okay, so you have a pain and you end up being diagnosed with cancer. Okay, well, perhaps now I understand I have cancer, but you don't really understand it until you hear the whole treatment protocol. And you don't really understand it until you try going through the treatment protocol and discover that it's not so easy to do 6 months of chemotherapy and you feel like crap. And they told you to lose your hair. But manageability is, who's going to take care of my kids during all this process? Where am I going to be? Who's going to make me my food? Who can afford all that stuff? Right? We don't talk about this. We just say, here's your treatment. Right? We go, okay, great. I know what to do. I'm going to get rid of it. Versus, oh, how am I going to manage all that stuff? We're starting to do that in integrative care. And then, of course, is it meaningful? What did I learn? And when you actually talk to cancer folks who have done really well, people get changed. There's something about it. Yep. There's also something can be powerful about losing a loved one, or a lot of pieces. So it's a useful understanding, managing, and meaningful. Yes.
My best friend came through a cancer journey, and she has spoken many times of her cancer coach.
Right.
And
yes.
how important that coaching partnership through it, and with such an impeccable strength of mind and powerful, positive spirit, coming through it and just saying, it doesn't exist in me anymore, and it never had power over me. And the conversation that she had with, and it was the coach that really, really was her connection to all of that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Once again, can you see why it's going to be a growing profession really fast? Right, because as we, that's a good example. Why would the cost benefit of a person versus a $70,000 annual chemo treatment is ridiculous. Why wouldn't you have coach all the cancer patients. Why wouldn't? It's so cheap, right? So I'm going to keep going. How am I doing on time, Kurt?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Narrative health coaching. Well, I think I'm almost there. So I think I'm doing really well. My specific version of coaching. Remember, I'm trained as an ICF coach, not as a health coach. It's salutogenic. We focus on what it calls cycles of learning. It's developmental versus behavioral. And that's a little bit more important in a health coaching world, but it's also true in regular coaching. But there were clarifications. I am an integral coach, but I'm from Integral Coaching Canada, not New Ventures West. There's a long history of how they were all together and then they split. But the New Ventures West is a developmental coaching model as well. And then I just give you one thing, the healing topic versus the chief complaint. So I'm going to quickly, just there's a couple of slides here. I really like this particular system. It's called Lectica. You can become a Lectica trained coach if you want, where this is their learning model. You set your goals, you seek how to solve, what do I need to learn? I apply what I'm learning. I assess how it's going, and then I reset my goals. This is not rocket science. They didn't invent it. If it sounds familiar, that's because a lot of models of learning are like this. I just think it's very well articulated. So that's why I teach it, and I also studied with them, so I like their stuff. She does a wonderful video, if you want me to send it to you, called, she calls it Addicted to Learning. I had 500 babies, and how do babies learn how to walk? Their goal, they seek, they apply, they fall down, and eventually they figure out how to walk, right? It's a wonderful model, and Lectica does actual third-party, assessments. You can learn how to do that. The healing topic is, so my coaching particular model, we want to have a really clear idea of what you're trying to have happen. People come in with a chief complaint, and I want them to leave with a healing topic. That's how you take them out of the disease model and into the coaching model. Okay, so the larger vision or enhancement in the health of the client that offers an opportunity for growth. So my shoulder hurts or I have diabetes, okay, the coaching conversation moves toward, well, what wants to emerge? What would you like to see happen? What's really going on? The example I really like to give, an easy one, is a woman comes in with eczema, and after the conversation, it turns out that she feels really bad about the way she interacts with her partner, her wife, and so she has really bad boundaries, is what it comes down to. So this idea of her skin is like when she doesn't do a good job at saying, I don't really want to go out with you tonight, honey, go out with your friends, I'm going to stay home, her skin gets all aggravated. So then what she thinks is, can you get rid of my eczema? But where she goes is to be more able to skillfully communicate with my partner such that we both get our needs met. That's a healing topic. And she's all excited. That's great. If I could do that, I'd be happy. And it's like, and meanwhile, your skin will get better too. So that's a healing topic. It's not the reason why they came in to see you in a health coaching. It's that connecting to that deeper yearning, the healing topic, and it requires the coach really look for it, and it's very salutogenic. So that's kind of the key opening move in the way that I teach coaching, is to shift. That's the first visit. I don't give, the first visit is a pure intake. The way I describe it is at the end of the visit, you want to have a draft of the healing topic, where you can, okay, this is what we're going to do. We'll talk about it at the next visit. Okay, I know I'm running out of time. Developmental, it's a really big slide, but often health coaching collapses into behavior, just learn how to do things more, better, more frequently. And developmental is becoming increasingly using more skills, more complex problem solving, new ways of thinking. So we do assessments with mental, emotional, somatic, social, energy use, and motivation. Those are actually different areas, so that I like to describe it as taking what you're good at and applying it to areas that are weak. Leveraging your strengths to learn new skills in the weak areas so that you have a more robust solution versus boot camp solution, right? You just get up every morning and exercise, you're going to lose weight, right? It's like, no, understanding that weight is, my favorite one is usually it's the buffet tables that get us. So what is it about the social structures that cause us to be uncomfortable about eating? is a much more interesting conversation than how to count more calories. Okay, and so that leads me to create what I call learning objectives. So these are the skills and capacities needed to achieve the healing topic. So I build a coaching program. So the first visit, client comes in with a chief complaint, they leave with a tentative healing topic, then I create a coaching program for them. And this is, I'm not the first coaching program guy in the world, and it's the capacities they're going to need to achieve the healing topic. It also becomes an outline or map of the coaching program, and it's asked them to learn new skills. Once again, address the weaknesses with, you know, what are we going to do? And it sets the conditions for success. So it's not reinventing the wheel. It's taking ICF coaching, a certain style, and applying it to the health field. I mean, I've seen lots of people nodding, which is good. I feel like I'm in the right company. Questions about that? Because, you know, this is the one promotion. I do teach continuing ed classes, so the school does, and we are ICF approved for our continuing ed, so this is my quick plug. I have flyers here if you wanted to study this stuff. I just want to give one quick plug for this. So I'm co-authored this book with 10 coaches, if you can imagine that. And I was the only health provider, and the question really is how does healing apply to coaching in general? And so what this ended up being is everybody wrote one of these narratives that you guys started writing. So it's totally fascinating from that. There's a lot of first-person writing. And then there's also methodological descriptions of the way this particular coaching technique, it's not my technique, it's not narrative health coaching, it's actually integral coaching from Integral Coaching Canada. There's case studies, and I've been told it's actually a really lovely book. I brought a few copies. They're on Amazon at $12.95. I'd sell them for $10, and I have flyers. But you know, we find that, you know, for continuing ed, lots of, you know, we're getting coaches from all over who want to do, particularly the narrative healing class actually applies, I think, a little bit more to the conventional coaches, because it's doing this narrative work versus the foundations class, which is much more technique, right? And it's really designed as a basic class for people wanting to become coaches. And how am I doing on time? And so questions, and right, I think we're moving to that. Yeah. Yep.
So in the broader context, are you saying that narrative healing is primarily for lifestyle type of illnesses as opposed to other kinds of diseases?
I think it's a great question. I would say that, I'm not saying that, but I appreciate you asking the question. I find that it's true for all diseases, okay? So what I'm saying is that underneath most illness is two things. One is lifestyle has a big impact on any illness. What's really clear is that a lot of illness comes from long-term trauma, interestingly enough. Okay, and when I say trauma, I want to redefine the word trauma from that, you know, I had a really wicked uncle who did bad things to me, to chronically stressful situations over long periods of time during my childhood. So there's a wonderful book called When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. And he goes through disease by disease and shows you the evidence that lots of diseases have to do with long-term stress. So if it has to do with long-term stress, then this whole lifestyle as a healing resource is a vital thread. It doesn't replace conventional medicine, but it says that you really can. So what I say to clients is, I may not be able to cure you, but you will leave the process having a much different relationship with your illness, and you will find it more, you'll understand it, you'll manage differently, and it'll be meaningful for you. And that changes the way you go about trying to work with your chronic condition. And if it's not so chronic, then you'll develop the resources to actually get better. I think that answered the question.
Okay, no, that's helpful.
Yeah, thanks for asking, though. It's a good clarifying question. Yeah.
This would be a wonderful blend with palliative care.
Oh, totally.
I mean, it's just a great segue.
So it's showing up in pain care, it's showing up in end of life, it's showing up in cancer. You can see why there's just going to be explosions. So I do also we do a monthly free, it's called the Future of Health Coaching Online, that you can, listen to a free. So we just, like, in February, we interviewed a chaplain who became an ICF coach, who does end-of-life coaching, and he talks all about, the creating social networks for folks who have loss in their life. It's totally wonderful. And so, yeah, you see it shows up in lots of places. And to me, it's building resources, right? And so it goes back to your question. What happens is when the disease gets serious enough, people kind of collapse into, well, I really got to focus on the disease. And they need just as much the resource building, the salutogenic process, anyone else. But, if you get hit by a car and you're bleeding, you need to stop the bleeding, right? I mean, that's still true. So it's kind of a both and approach versus a one takes over from the other. How are we doing on time?
I think that's it. We're getting close.
Do we get to go back to schmoozing?
Do you want?
You have announcements, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
Right. So yes, anybody? Yeah. Good. Well, thank you for listening, participating.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great.